Hi, I'm Christina and welcome to the start of another reading vlog. So this week I'm reading On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Vuong. So this is a contemporary novel and he is a Vietnamese American author and he is a poet and this is his debut novel. And I've read 30 pages so far and I just think it's absolutely wonderful. I'd read about 14 pages and I was like, that's it, I am absolutely sold on this. I think it's so good. So it's written in the format of a letter to his illiterate mother, and it's written in a very interesting way. So it's written in a type of stream of consciousnness, and I normally don't like that style of writing. It just doesn't really click with me, but it just absolutely works here. It works so well. It is written so beautifully. You can absolutely definitely tell that he is a poet, and yeah, I think it works really well. I can't fault it at all. And I know I've only read a very small portion of this, and yet it already feels to me like this is going to be a 5-star read. It just feels like a 5-star read, and I think that's really difficult to do literally within like 30 pages. So I think this has the potential to be a new favourite already. So we've kind of been introduced to a small cast of characters in his family. So we obviously have him and we have his mother and his grandmother and his auntie. So it feels like it's going to be a bit of a family saga, and I love that. I love generational family sagas. So I'm very much looking forward to reading more of this. And that's exactly what I'm going to go and do. I'm going to just go and read a little bit more and see how I feel. And I'm really looking forward to it. So I've read another chunk of this. I've read about 70 or so pages. So I'm up to page 107 and I'm about halfway through the book now. So in 2 sittings, I'm halfway through the book and I am really enjoying this one. Like I thought I would. It is written so beautifully, so well. It's one of those books where you just kind of actually can visualize everything that's happening in front of your eyes. And I think that just shows what a great author he is. I think there's actually very few books that actually allow you to visualize what's happening. And I just think that that's an amazing skill to have. And like I say, I think it's quite rare. It is for me anyway. So yeah, I'm definitely really enjoying this one. And it is a generational story. We kind of go back and forth between his life at different ages, and when we look into the life of his grandmother and, you know, meeting the grandfather, and we look into the mother's life and just kind of go back and forth between these 3 main characters. Obviously everything's told through his perspective as, you know, the narrator. And going forward now, we've just been introduced to a new character, and I think it's like a romantic kind of storyline is where we're heading. That's how it feels anyway. I've only just got there, but I'm pretty sure it's heading in that kind of romantic direction. And yeah, I think it's going to be good. I think we're going to be seeing him, you know, growing up. I think this is my first book that I've read that is kind of set in Vietnam. Obviously it's partly set in Vietnam, it's partly set in America because he's born in Vietnam and then he moves to America with his family. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. I think it's going to discuss lots of really important topics, and like I say, it's written so well. This could genuinely become a new favourite for me. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to carrying on reading this one. Hi, so I have finished On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, and I don't really know how I feel about this one anymore. I know before I was saying that I was really enjoying it and it was going to be a 5-star read, but it just kind of changed. So halfway through, the writing style changed and it became a lot more disjointed. And I didn't really like that as much. I didn't really connect to it as much. And then a little bit further on, it was talking about the theme of cancer, and he was very, very graphic with that, very graphic with the act of dying and cancer in general. And for me, that hit a bit too close to home. I didn't like that at all. It really impacted my enjoyment of this book, and I just kind of thought, I don't like it anymore. That was a bit too hard hitting for me, and it wasn't something I was expecting. Now, I do have to say that it really does touch on some really important topics. So it touched obviously on that, and that's an important topic, but I didn't think it was done very sensitively. It felt very harsh and very raw, and I didn't really like that. But it does talk about other topics that are really important, like war and PTSD and being an immigrant and not really feeling like you belong. And then it talks about sexuality, it talks about homophobia, it talks about masculinity, and so many really important topics, and he does address a lot of them really, really well. But I didn't like that one instance of that. It made me feel very uncomfortable, and I just really didn't like that. I didn't like it at all. So I think for me, it's just going to be a bit of a miss. I can still appreciate what this book is trying to do, and the first half I thought was absolutely brilliant. I found learning about his family, his mother's life and his grandmother's life and his early life very interesting. And then it also touches on, later on, very heavily touches on drugs and drug abuse and addiction. And again, it's all very full on. There's a lot of heavy topics in this. And I think if you are sensitive to any of those things, then it might actually affect your reading experience. And I mean, it could hurt you in some way. I mean, not to sound dramatic, but I think it's important to maybe look at content warnings for this one, because like I say, I think it hit me a bit too hard on that one. So I'd still think that it's a good book, and I'm probably just going to give it 3 stars. I think that's where I'm resting. Yeah, 3 stars. I don't want to read this again. It's definitely not one I want to reread. But if you are intrigued by it, if it's a story that you want to read, I'd say still give it a go. This is obviously a very personal thing for me, and it's no way reflection on the book or its writing or his ability to write a book. It's just something that for me, it didn't vibe with me, and that's completely okay. So that's that one. I'm gonna read something, I hope, next, a little bit happier, a little bit more upbeat. I kind of want to get back up to something that's, I don't know, just a bit more joyful, maybe something like a little bit more wholesome, or something that's just completely different and just like a thriller and something I can just get lost in. So that is my plan. Hi, so the first book I'm reading in April is My Sister, the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. And if you'd like to see what else I'm planning to read in April, I will link my April TBR down below so you can go and check that out. And I was actually going to give you a halfway update on this book, but I read it so quickly that I've just read the whole thing without updating. So it is a really super fast read, in my opinion. I read it over the course of one day, and I read it in about 3.5 hours. So super fast for me. It has been a very long time since I've read a book in a day. So yeah, I was really surprised by that. And I liked it. I'm going to give it 3 stars, and that's because I enjoyed the story and I enjoyed the characters. So it's about basically these 2 sisters, one of which is a serial killer, as you can tell from the title, and they have this kind of strange dynamic relationship. It's like a love-hate relationship, obviously, and she's murdered 3 of her previous boyfriends, and the sister always cleans up for her. She kind of rings her in the middle of the night or whenever it is and tells her what happens, and she comes racing down, and they remove the body and they clean up wherever it happened, in the apartment most likely. and she kind of has this very protective feeling towards her younger sister. So the serial killer is a kind of fashion designer, kind of an aspiring fashion designer, and she's an influencer too, and she's very, very beautiful, and that's mentioned quite a lot. It's a very recurrent theme that she is absolutely gorgeous. And then her sister is a nurse, and she's a little bit more what she would say is a plain Jane. She always compares her sister's beauty to her own, and it's kind of going on in that pace. And then all of a sudden, her sister visits her in the hospital where she works, and she takes a shine to one of the doctors who works there. And it's actually the doctor that our main character has had a crush on for a very long time. She definitely has feelings for him, and she's now torn between, you know, her sister and this man that she's had feelings for a long time now. And she knows the way her sister is with men, that she will probably end up killing him. So it's an interesting concept. I obviously don't want to tell you much about the plot because it would just be a spoiler. But to be honest, most of the plot is just in the title. So there's that. So I will say, this is meant to be a thriller. So the reason I wanted to read it was shortlisted for the Goodreads Choice Awards in 2019, and it won second place in the thriller mystery category. And obviously it was shortlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction in 2019 too. So it's a very hyped book, and I was very, very interested to read it. But to me, it doesn't really read like a thriller. It reads more like a contemporary. And I think it just has been labelled as a thriller because of the notion that it's about a serial killer. But it doesn't really have like the twists and turns and like the excitement that a thriller has, that kind of expectation. It definitely reads more like a domestic kind of contemporary to me, which I still really enjoyed, but it wasn't what I was expecting going into it. And I think one of the best parts about this book is the sister relationship. If you enjoy sibling relationships, I think you'll like it because it really is very well done. There's a lot of kind of dynamics to it, and that's very interesting. So the other things I think this book does really well is bringing in the culture aspect of it. So this book is set in Lagos, Nigeria, and I think it is the first book I've ever read that's been set in Nigeria, so I found that very interesting. So she includes a lot of local language in the speech, which I thought was really good. It really kind of gave it that authentic feel. And the other thing that I enjoyed is that she talks about very traditional cuisines as well, and foods. So as I was reading through the book, I was like Googling what the different foods were, and obviously you can see the pictures and see how it's made, and I found that really intriguing. Lots of different foods that I've never heard of before. And again, it really adds a lot of authenticity to the book because you're learning about real traditional like Nigerian cuisine, which I thought was really interesting. And she also talks about the more difficult things as well, like the inherent like corruption of the police. And I found that very, very, very interesting. I thought it was good that she kind of popped lots of different things in. And she does talk about the class structure as well in Nigeria, which I didn't know very much about at all. So yeah, she touches on a lot of interesting themes, which I liked. It kind of brought this kind of culture aspect to the book. And yeah, I enjoyed it. So the reason I'm keeping this one at a 3-star rather than giving it any more is because I kind of felt there was a lack of emotional connection to the characters for me. And I think there was a lack of character development too. And I think the reason for that is that it's a very, very short book. So it's under 250 pages long. And I just feel like that's one of those things that I needed a little bit more of to feel connected to these characters. Having said that, I think this would make a really good film adaptation. I could just see this working really, really well in a movie because I think there's a lot here that you could really build on. And I will also say one thing that I thought was interesting is the fact that we're getting the perspective from her sister. So the entire novel is written through the sister to the serial killer. And I've read quite a few books that have been told through the perspective of a serial killer, but I've never read a book that is told through a loved one of a serial killer's perspective. So it gives it a new kind of twist, a new kind of slant, which is interesting because to never actually hear from the serial killer's point of view, it's kind of just leaving her a bit more like elusive, and we don't know that much about her. We see her only through her sister's eyes, which I think is very interesting actually. So I would say if you're looking for a book that is a quick, fast-paced read, I think you might enjoy this one. I think it'd be a great kind of palate cleanser for a longer, heavier book because, like I say, I think you can read this one in one sitting. I did, and I don't think it is too difficult to read just in one sitting over the course of just 1 or 2 days. And if you're also looking for a book that does explore kind of the sibling relationship of sisters, and if you enjoy morally grey characters, because both of these women are morally grey characters, obviously one's a serial killer and one is happy to cover that fact up. So if that's something that you enjoy, then obviously I think you might find it interesting. And if you like to just learn a little bit more about the culture of Nigeria and just read a book that's set in Nigeria, then I think you would like it too. So I'm going to end the vlog here. So I've actually read 2 books this week and normally I only read one. So I'm quite impressed with that. So thank you so much for watching. Like I say, if you'd like to see what else I'm planning to read in April, I will link that down below for you to have a look at. Otherwise, I will see you in my next one. Please do like the video and please do subscribe if you'd like to see more of me talking about books. Bye!